Imagine a world where every threat, ransomware, supply chain attacks, zero-day exploits is stopped before it can even begin. ThreatLocker makes that world a reality with a zero-trust approach to cybersecurity. By giving you granular control and every executable in your environment, ThreatLocker protects your business around the clock. No more guessing, no more gaps. Just rock-solid protection that keeps your operations running smoothly and your data secure. Discover how ThreatLocker's least privilege approach can safeguard your organization against known and unknown threats. Take the first step towards total peace of mind by visiting securityweekly.com/ThreatLocker today. Welcome back to Enterprise Security Weekly. Now for the Enterprise Security Weekly news. You can check out securityweekly.com/ESW403 if you want to follow along as we go through the news, or for links to the articles we're covering, or for my comments on them. We now have Ayman Elsawa with us, which I forgot to introduce you again in the second interview.
Oh, good.
How you doing?
Good. Good, man. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I could use some more high fives. Today is National High Five Day, but we can't do that. Yeah. I haven't figured out how to do that with computers yet. I'm sure Meta or Apple will come out with some kind of like biofeedback suit, and we can do high five, crisp high fives one day.
AR.
Yeah. So the news, we might as well hit the drama first. Number 10 is the complete dumpster fire that is CISA here, which really kind of reminds me of the tariff stuff that's going on in terms of how it caused damage. So this news comes out. Let me just kind of run through the timeline here. It's a very short timeline. 1:23 p.m. Eastern on Tuesday, I think it was. Yeah, today's Thursday. We're recording on Thursday, April 17th. So this would have been a couple days ago. We see a tweet that CVE is in trouble. Their contract has not been renewed with MITRE. And MITRE does a lot of the work on handling CVEs, analyzing them, triaging them, all that kind of stuff. And we just see this flood of posts on LinkedIn from everyone, including Jen Easterly. My entire LinkedIn feed was just, oh my God, CVE.
Yes.
It was the same for you guys?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the letter.
LinkedIn,
everybody.
text message, Slack.
YouTube. John Hammond had a video up.
Yeah, It was bad.
Yeah. Yeah, I had multiple places where the feeds were about nothing but CVE. I'm in a new Discord and a new Slack as a result of this thing.
Nice.
I guess.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that's nice, but
yeah.
It's another place to spend time. But so all kinds of, okay, what are we going to do? So half of the CVE board apparently has had a plan in the works for a year to open a nonprofit independent foundation. So they kicked that off and they announced that domain and share that and that settles some people down. And then the next morning we see, no, there was a deal done. So and this is why this reminds me of the tariffs, because when the tariffs, like across the board, every country, anywhere from 20 to 100 million% tariffs, I got an email from every Kickstarter I had, every pre-order of a gadget I had, which is probably more than I should be, but I buy a lot of gadgets, and like the new Pebble watch just got announced not too long ago. And like the original Pebble, which was the biggest Kickstarter ever, very small profit margins, very inexpensive device. I think the entry level one was like $129.99, something like that. And you put a 10%, 20% tariff on that and they're done. So I same thing. I'm getting all these floods of emails like, we don't know what we're going to do. The Nintendo Switch got paused. And then they pause them. After like 5 hours, after the tariffs have been in place for less than a day. And the same thing happens here, but I think the damage is already done, right? Like some of that trust, some of that stability is lost because it happened once, it can happen again, right? And it's been extended for another 11 months or 12 months or whatever. But things weren't going great already. We talked, I think last week about Crush FTP, the drama there, where already people were creating proof of concepts, but had no CVE number. So Volncheck created the CVE number, and then Crush FTP said, no, we're not going to use that number. We're going to use this number instead. And now we had two CVEs for the same vulnerability. Wow. And so we already had issues even without the funding thing with MITRE. So I think I think the damage is done. There's going to be some fragmentation here, and Europe has started theirs. It also feels kind of like Twitter all over again. Like it used to feel like everybody in cybersecurity was on Twitter, and then everybody scattered to Mastodon and Threads and Blue Sky, and like it doesn't feel like we're ever going to get back to that place where we were with everybody using one source. And that was one of the good things about CVE, even though it was run partially by the US government. That was kind of the standard for all the products and all the tools. And there are other vulnerability databases out there, but especially paid ones, they can't really step in and replace this here because not everybody's going to pay for it. So you throw out an OSVDB number, I don't know what that means. I don't have access to OSVDB. You got to pay, and then you have to update
all of your tools that ingest them, and
there's a whole ecosystem that's been disrupted here.
Right. So just taking a step back, because I was very much caught in the frenzy yesterday, as you both were, and CVE has been problematic for a while. So has CVSS. First of all, what I discovered, much to my surprise, is that there isn't a ubiquitous understanding of the difference between CVE, CWE, and CVSS, which is part of the problem. People were conflating.
Or NVD.
Right.
Right. And NVD is the database. Yeah.
Right. So people were conflating CVE with the CVSS. They were mixing up MITRE with NIST. They didn't understand how things would be effective. But the reality is all of that stuff has been problematic for a while. We've known it in the industry. It just was easy not to switch for all of the reasons you just mentioned. Mm-hmm. But if we're really looking at it, 24, 36, whatever hours later, from a pragmatic point of view, MITRE had already planned this. Lots of organizations have already planned on this. We've known that the MITRE CV database, we've known that NIST and NVD and CVSS are problematic. They're not the easy button. They were getting kind of out of control because we can't do what we need to today with these blanket ratings. We can't keep up with all of them. NVD was having a problem with that last year. They took the database and the updating offline for...
And it's ironic, right? Like me and Matt are advising people to ignore most of this work that they're doing because most of it isn't relevant, doesn't represent any real risk. And the problem these programs are having is the volume, is the amount of stuff.
Right.
But the problem is nobody knows what 1% is important. So it all has to get done, right?
It all has to get done. It all has to get used. But people have known this for a while. And especially with MITRE, we had to look at this as an industry with a clear head. We had to know what was coming, not just with CVE and MITRE, but with the government. We know the history of CISA and the current administration. We know that Chris Krebs is under fire and that he's the former director of CISA. So infer what you will from that. And right now, this is a non-issue. Is it a problem? Yeah, it is. So is it something we need to fix? For sure, but we're not breaking anybody's tools. They're already broken because of the system. So we need something new and something better. But I think it's really important for companies to, first of all, not panic, not ambulance chase the number of messages. Oh my God, is this risk score broken? Oh my God, is your product going to work? Oh my God, what are we going to do? We're never going to be able to find our vulnerabilities. Whoa, whoa, slow down. There are a lot of ways that we can approach this, and we had to fix it before this anyway. Now, the level of trust in what we can expect from public-private collaboration moving forward, I think it's mostly dead at this point. I think for sure we've got a big problem wherever the government's concerned for a while. We know that other countries, in particular the EU, that's not countries, a set of countries, already has mistrust in what's going on over here. And so we're gonna have to work as a community within the greater global ecosystem, because
So
as a country, we could be left out of
so
global
it sounds like what you're
standards.
saying is like what happened was a bit of ripping off the Band-Aid. Like a lot of this was kind of falling apart anyway. So maybe it did us a favor. Is
It
that
kind of
kind of what you're
exposed
saying?
something that basically, I mean, it's kind of like a supply chain
Yeah.
issue that like there was like a vulnerable library somewhere that nobody knew about.
Yeah,
Like that's all it did. It's just really expose
a weak
um,
point.
a weak point in our whole security ecosystem, particularly in the vulnerability research. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's just what's going to happen if it starts getting more fragmented and you have, I mean, like the open source community already has some of that. I think I saw somewhere um, someone posting, and then the open Terraform folks, like, commented. So I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely a
it's
ripping off the Band-Aid, and something, we're being forced to eat our vegetables. This is the, the vulnerability numbering equivalent of being forced to eat your vegetables.
yeah. I think this makes me think a lot about resilience, which is something that as an industry, we need to move towards. It's one of the reasons that I leave security chaos engineering under the spotlight right behind me here. And like Let's Encrypt is another one of those, right? Like imagine
Mhm.
this happens to Let's Encrypt and tomorrow Let's Encrypt is going away and all your certificates expire tomorrow and all your tooling is set up to automatically renew through Let's Encrypt. How quickly can you switch that over to something else? What's your agility there if that rug gets pulled from the entire industry? And Let's Encrypt is something like 60% of all certificates now because it's free, right? And yeah, how resilient are we to some of these weak points breaking? Some of these resources that are no cost to us, but somebody else decides to pull them because they can't handle that cost anymore. Like I'm sure, like Let's Encrypt, I'm sure. I think they have a lot of different sources of income from different companies. I think it actually is funded in a way that we're talking about funding CVE. Being more of a like get sponsors from the industry. The security companies that benefit from this, the tech companies that benefit
Yeah.
from this, where they just take donations and survive that way. But I think that's one of those things we have to think about is like how dependent are we on something that's completely out of our control and could go away, in 24 hours. What's in our stack? That's like CVE. Like Let's Encrypt would be a lot worse than CVE, I think, if it went away. Like that's um,
Yeah.
infrastructure breakage would start happening within 24 hours. Whereas with CVE, oh no, we can't identify a single vulnerability or, a couple hundred new vulnerabilities. Like we'll live,
Mhm.
you know, systems won't go down as a result of that. But I think we do have to start thinking about that. Like what are the other things that these security tools depend on that we depend on that could pull the rug out should something happen to them?
Right. It's basic threat modeling, not saying basic equals easy. Do not conflate that, but it is basic threat modeling, and we really have to think about that and look at, like you said, resilience. But just like CVE, it can't come from an external source. It has to be individual. It has to be based on business priorities, risk tolerance, the data and the systems and everything each individual company has. Can there be frameworks? Of course there can be, but there's never going to be a one size fits all threat model. And I think companies need to be getting serious about it. And especially if there continues to be geopolitical tensions, we need to think about how we protect our infrastructure as individual companies. Because what if you're a critical infrastructure company and you're targeted by a nation state? This goes for any nation
Yeah.
state around the world. Because I tend to think the cybersecurity community thinks more globally in a lot of ways than some other industries. And I think we really need to look at it as, how do we threat model against these types of threats for our industry, our location, our company, our systems, our data, our risk tolerance, our, everything that's in the business. And it's not, again, basic, certainly not easy.
Yeah, and it's a good point that like a lot of tech, a lot of the internet, a lot of it is very US centric. A lot of the companies that control some pretty critical things are US based.
Yeah.
So it's certainly outside the US an opportunity for the rest of the world to say, maybe we should move our standard to something EU based, because at least that's a union of many different countries, or something entirely independent, that's maybe nonprofit, and run by some kind of international consortium.
Yeah.
So it's there's a lot of that in the works here. There's a lot of chewing gum and duct tape. I mean, we've seen it with BGP. There are a lot of protocols and systems, and we've seen it with DNS. I think a single researcher took over the registrar for an entire country for their TLD at one point. There's still a lot of these very fragile things in the tech ecosystem, in the internet. How it all works and routes and connects together that that need to be improved. And this is a big one in our industry.
Yeah.
Like, so what do we need, right? Like replace I've been thinking about this. To replace CVE, like NVD is important. You need a database where all the CVEs are stored, all the vulnerabilities are stored, and you need. The score helps. There's other scores. CVSS isn't the only way to score a vulnerability. But it's useful. It's fairly transparent. The calculator makes it really easy to use. You can customize your score with other variables. And then CVE itself is a description of the vulnerability, the references, maybe it links to some CWEs. But I feel like the really valuable thing is everybody's using the same name. It's CVE dash year, 4-digit year dash number, which I assume is sequential or something like that. I don't know how the number gets generated. I know different organizations can issue these, like VulnCheck apparently got 1,000 for this year that they'll be able to coin themselves. So it's not just the main organization that can give these out, but it's been delegated to a bunch of other organizations. I forget the acronym for the organizations that can create their own CVE numbers, but they've basically been given, okay, you get CVE 2025, 10,000 through 20,000, right? Those are the numbers you can hand out. But yeah, it's just to make sure everybody's using the same number, right?
That's the.
Am I missing something, or is that really kind of the crux of it? Is just making sure, when I say CVE 2025 1234, we all know what I'm talking about.
Well, it's more than that because it's what a lot of tools use to determine, hey, do you have that, like, log4j?
Yeah, to index
right?
up. Right.
Right. Just to, do
But again, it's just having one number everybody's
it's
using.
just
Yeah, because
one
that's the
number.
primary key in a lot of databases
Yeah.
that store vulnerability information.
Yeah.
Yeah, it affects a lot of downstream, I guess. So there's a lot of downstream applications that rely on it.
Like if I want to look for a proof of concept on GitHub to try and exploit a vulnerability, I'm going to use the CVE number,
Right,
to search for that. What else would I search for? That exploit or that vulnerability that came out of Oracle the other day. Oh, well, 17 vulnerabilities came out of Oracle the other day. Which one are you talking about? Oh, it's the one with remote code execute. They all 17 had remote code execute. Well, shit. Like, like you got to have something specific enough to that one. Yeah, thank you. CVE numbering authorities, CNAs. Yeah.
Also, as a researcher, when you find something, you wanna get that CVE, published, and so that's also some. If there's no way to get that published somewhere, then you're kind of like, where do you go as an independent researcher?
Yeah. Wow, I didn't realize there were almost 300 CNAs.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
didn't believe this. I was like, is this the right link that I'm looking at?
So, I mean, even if it did get defunded, all these CNAs would have still been able. Oh, I understand why. It's because a lot of the vendors that have vulnerabilities in their products are CNAs. That makes sense.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of these are just vendors.
So it's the centralization. It's just a matter of coordinating without the one-upsmanship, coordinating without the need for attribution, for creating a backup database, if you will, in case this happens again. And it will definitely happen again. Maybe not tomorrow, maybe not next year. Yeah. At some point, we have to think about the idea of resilience, and we have to think about how to improve upon it. Though, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Well, it's been broke for a long time, and we've needed to fix it. Because there are so many other implications of what happens once we have the number. The number isn't really the problem, but having a central standardized number for everybody to reference, that's a starting point. And we have to have cooperation without any, I'm a vendor, I'm going to take credit or...
Well, it kind of dictates what the replacement looks like, right? So again, it can't be something paid, because everybody doing vulnerability management needs to be able to do lookups.
Yeah.
So it can't be a subscription service or something like that to access this. Otherwise, you're creating another security poverty line, right? Where, only the companies that spend a lot on security can afford to do vulnerability lookups. It's got to be open.
Yeah.
And yeah, it would really suck if it were to fragment. So like a lot of these do have multiple numbers. Microsoft issues their own, they've got their own number system where it's like MS year dash number.
Mm. Right? But the only thing with that is they usually get assigned a CVE as well, because obviously those Microsoft CVEs are for Microsoft products, and then
right,
so it gets even more complicated.
It is always more complicated because sometimes that Microsoft number applies to more than what the CVE applies to, and then when you get a hotfix number, which correlates to the patch, sometimes that covers multiple vulnerabilities, not just one. So it does get a lot more complicated once you start talking about remediation and how things are tracked in different vendors. So
right, and then you have to start looking at ranges, and then you have to start looking at versions, and then you have to start looking. So it's it starts to get very large very quickly, and so this is again not going to be an easy fix because we have to migrate somewhere.
Yeah,
and I think
and these are issues that have existed for years. Like when products that are basically white labeled versions of other products get by vendors get patches backported. So like the Apache web server and the IBM HTTPD server are the same product. But the IBM HTTPD server, when they apply a security patch, they don't increment the Apache HTTPD version, only the IBM version. Because when you do a banner check on these, you get both versions. You get an Apache version and an IBM version. So the vulnerability scanners say, "Oh, this isn't patched yet," when actually it is patched because they don't increment the number. I don't know if that's still the case, but that was the case back in like the mid 2000s, and it was a constant pain in my butt because for PCI compliance, we would have to justify, okay, like here's the situation. Every time we'd have to explain it to every new auditor. We'd have to document it for every vulnerability, that the scanner was incorrectly showing to be vulnerable. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's a mess outside CVE, but yeah, we don't really need. We get a lot going on with like AI and all this other stuff. We don't need this extra drama. We really don't.
No.
And it just felt like CISA and some of these organizations were starting to provide so much help too, and to see it start getting pulled,
it's really frustrating. Unfortunate because it definitely indicates, at least to me, this is my own personal opinion, that the government has no faith in CISA. And the cybersecurity community, a lot of people, from what I've seen in my channels, now have very little faith in the government. To be clear, they're still pro CISA. I don't know a lot of cybersecurity professionals who are not, but their faith in its ability to run and do its job correctly, given the circumstances, it just plummeted. It just plummeted. It hasn't been good for a while because of all of the political drama that was happening in the past few years. But as of yesterday, Tuesday, it's the feeling is not good, and we need cooperation from all sides in cybersecurity. We need the collaboration, the cooperation of our government to be able to work with some of these things, right? It's not just a matter of,
and it's, and it tends to be the critical infrastructure, the water utilities, the electric utilities, stuff like that need the most assistance, the kinds of assistance that's getting pulled.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go ahead and move on to something else here. I think that was enough of a rant there. We got to cover a few more things here, at least. There's some funding here. Let's see. The last week's vibe check from Mike Prevett's security funded newsletter was, "What's the strongest early signal a security tool will succeed in your org?" Which is the reverse of the question he asked in the last week. And the clear winner here was quick time to value, days, not weeks, which I like, because generally the longer it takes to implement a tool in an environment, the more likely people are just going to give up and it's going to become shelfware or something like that. Is that your experience, Eamon?
Yeah, I'm when I talk to founders, they're saying time to value. Like that's, actually, just seeing it everywhere. Even when an employee starts, when someone starts at a company, you want to see time to value. So this whole time to value thing is coming up more and more, oddly enough, in my radar. So yeah, I was just talking to a founder the other day that they need to get their time to value from like a month to I was saying it needs to be a few days.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe it's not full functionality. Maybe there's additional integrations to do or something like that. But, the thing should be at least functional in I'd say a day. Like we live in, like we're not racking appliances anymore in a lot of cases, hooking up cables and things like that. it shouldn't take long for the product to get up and running.
It's really about understanding the user. Like, a lot of times an engineer or like a technical engineer will make something that works, sure, but the UI must like probably sucks. And they're like, who cares about the UI? But then the other person using it might not be technical. They just wanna. So
Yeah.
a lot of investment needs to be done in like the UI, for example, or the flow, the workflow. But it's not like the investment doesn't happen, and they wait until, I don't know, V3 or V4. I'm like, why wait so
Yeah.
long?
Yeah, that does not make any sense. Yeah, because by then you've already got a reputation for junk, right?
Yes.
Like
Yes.
it's already hurt you. Like because that's how people buy things, is they say, "Hey, I'm looking to buy something in X category. What do you like?" They're like, "Well, I tried this one and it was just complete junk. And it was the V1, the V2. Maybe it's a lot better now, but that wasn't your experience." So, and you're not even going to find out that conversation's happening because it's on a Slack somewhere or Discord or
Yeah.
hallway con at a conference.
Yeah. Think about first impressions. When you meet someone, you don't show up in your pajamas or whatever. You dress up. So I mean, maybe some people do.
Wait.
They don't care.
Don't speak on my behalf.
Oh, yeah.
I work at home.
I sometimes spray cologne like for a virtual meeting.
Yeah. I'm good.
It affects how you
does.
present yourself, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to feel good.
Yeah. I'm a much better host on this show when I take a shower before. I didn't take a shower today. This episode is going to be terrible.
It's going to be the worst ever. The whole thing about your gray hair wasn't TMI, but
earbuds,
that was TMI.
Like I don't even have my studio monitors in. I'm just slumming it with the headphone. I got the hair tied back.
Lovely.
Anyway, Tailscale raised $160 million Series C.
That was awesome.
It's your next RFI question. Have the founders showered?
It affects your confidence. The confidence of this company is pretty good. Like Tailscale is one of those companies that I feel like was quality from the start. And I've only heard good things about Tailscale. 160 million for a Series C is a huge, solid number.
Good for
I want to
them.
know what they're going to do with it. Like, I just want to know what they're going to do with it.
Well, sometimes they mention here funding will be used for product innovation, global expansion, and for the growth of engineering, sales, and product teams. So some redundancy there. Yeah, global expansion means hiring a bunch more salespeople. So yeah, I mean that kind of suggests maybe build some more product lines. There's a lot of products already out there that I feel like are built on Tailscale or things like Tailscale. It varies very much is this kind of foundational product that you can build other cool stuff on top of.
Could be expanding like into adjacent IC EDR integrations. What does that make their valuation at, you think? I mean, Series C 160. Total 275.
160.
Raised.
So valuations, I've been seeing a lot of valuations that are kind of 10 to 15x. So on
10 to 15x.
Since I didn't take a shower today, I got to use a calculator to do this. Otherwise, I would have done it in my head.
So probably we're talking a unicorn at this point.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, definitely a unicorn,
actually,
like 2.5 billion.
Well,
at the higher end.
2x unicorn. Okay.
Unless unicorn is no longer 1B.
Right?
We don't have time. We don't have time for that today.
Yeah. Years ago, we talked about resetting what unicorn status meant, but that was in a very different time. Yeah. I feel like we can just erase all that, Katie, because valuations came back down to earth. So maybe a billion still is.
Sure, but if you're saying you're seeing 10 to 15x, that's still astronomical. I mean, you would expect in a normal market.
It's a lot less than it used to be, though.
A lot less than it used to be, but I mean...
But Wiz, Like,
Well, Wiz
if we
does.
use Wiz as our comp.
No, we can't use Wiz as our comp. Wiz is its own little
Universe.
deck of
Absolutely.
corn or whatever the heck it is. But for me, it would be more
Quadricorn.
normal to see 6 to 8x, right? Like when it was, 2010s, 2000 to 2018.
Well, what's the purpose of telling somebody your valuation? Like it's all just hopes and dreams anyway.
It's just
like,
ego.
Like the whole point.
Right? It means nothing. Like it just, like anything else. If you're selling your house and you try to sell it for $1 million and everybody who comes in is like, well, I'll give you 500,000 for it, then who cares about your $1 million dreams?
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. But yeah, that's tomorrow's problem. We'll say we're a unicorn today, and we'll see what happens.
I mean, hey, good for them. That's all I have to say. Good for them. They raised money. Nice.
So I'm surprised it took this long, and maybe I just missed some of it. But the next one on the list is called Anecdotes. Great name, by the way. A US based GRC platform raised a 30 million Series B, and I feel like I've been waiting to see this. Like from the start of ChatGPT, I was like, oh yeah, automate all your third party risk management, all your GRC stuff. Like there's so many processes that could benefit from something that can summarize text, that can transform text, can tell you the difference between two contracts, but update a policy or a group of policies for you. Like there's just so much language and text work in GRC.
Yeah.
I'm surprised it's taken till now before seeing one of these.
Yeah.
So I'm excited.
I think we're late to the game. I don't know what's going on comparatively, but maybe this is the year.
Maybe it's just not junk. Maybe this is the amount of time it took to build a quality product. I don't know anything about it other than this press release, but I do hope that it's good. All right. There's a few more there. I don't know that any of them are really worth diving too deeply into. All Series A, mostly AI related or supply chain. You can check out the show notes if you want to check that out. And so I've got a note here. We haven't, I think it's been a month since we talked about an acquisition, and I think it was Wiz. And I suspect maybe some of those announcements are waiting for RSA. So maybe we see a flood of acquisitions. And there are acquisitions going on. They're just companies you've never heard of, so I don't include them in the show, or they're services companies. Like that's the heaviest place with acquisitions. Yep. Always. There's always at least half a dozen service companies getting acquired every week.
Yeah.
There's some new tools here, and they're both Chrome extensions, as I implied in the intro. One is from DropZone AI. We interviewed the founder of DropZone a little while back. That's one of these like replace a tier of your SOC with AI startups, and this is a free tool they have that if you're on a web page looking at an alert, you can basically click this extension and it'll analyze the alert for you and give you advice on remediation. It's called Coach from DropZone AI, and it's free. And I don't have anywhere to look at an alert, so I haven't been able to test it out, but I did install it. And I intended to try it out before here. But actually, just now I'm thinking where I do have some alerts that I could have looked up. I've just been too busy this week to dig up some old SIM data, which I know I've got around here.
Spin up your Sirius instance that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a kind of like a vulnerability. Like it would be interesting to try on a bunch of different things and see what it does.
Yeah.
And then I think with any of these tools, also just drop it into Claude or Gemini or ChatGPT and see like how customized is this? How is it really better than you would get from a generic product? I feel like I'm really interested to see how these customized generative models, security models, compare to the generic ones. Then the other one I'm really interested in from vendors. So vendor basically, I guess they find ways to get information about pricing, and this is one of those frustrating things in IT in general, but enterprise, B2B sales in general is, I have to talk to sales to figure out if something is within my budget or not, figure out how much it costs. Does it cost 30 grand, 300 grand? I
Yeah.
won't know until the fourth sales call, right? and they find a way to get some of this data. I don't know exactly how vendor gets that data. I suspect they get it from people. I
Isn't it
remember,
because aren't they the middleman? So like
are they
they have sellers, they
reseller?
have buyers. So you just go through vendor to buy it. And so they I'm guessing that's one way. But yeah, maybe buyers actually report it too.
Yeah, it says it's a sales channel. Yeah, so yeah, I guess they're a reseller. Well, I know Owler, I think it was called Owler, has like business information, and they would send me emails and be like, "Oh, we saw from your LinkedIn you worked at this place. Could you tell us how many, like what the revenue is,
Oh
or how
wow.
many people work there?" So I know there are companies out there like literally just texting and emailing people to try and gather intelligence about products and businesses.
I found
Um,
somebody mentioned the company called theorg.com, which will show you
mhm.
org charts of various companies out there. I'm like, interesting.
Yep. Yeah, we used one called Discoverer, something like that, or Discovery.
Hmm.
That did the same thing. I found out it was almost always wrong.
Oh,
I
okay.
don't think I ever found a case where the information was correct. Like a lot of times it'd be just flat wrong, outdated. Like it's not keeping up with a lot of changes that are happening in the organization. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's basically designed for SDRs and sales folks trying to figure out who to cold call. Right.
I guarantee you from the number of messages I get every day geared towards not my marketing function, that a lot of companies pay a lot of money for this.
Yeah.
I am targeted for all kinds of things that, "Oh, Catherine, I saw where you did blah, 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 blah." First of all, if you're still calling me Catherine,
Yeah.
my
The
LinkedIn
moment you see Kath, delete.
that hasn't been on my LinkedIn for a decade,
Mhm.
but then targeting me for a function that has nothing to do with what I do, and my job title is pretty clear. It's a horrible way to sales prospect by buying lists, because you're probably going to annoy somebody. And for me, you guys probably get this too. It's just over and over. "Didn't you see my last email? Hey, did this email resonate?" Well, if it resonated, I would have
I
gotten
hate
back
those
to you.
approaches.
Like,
Yeah, it pisses me off.
there's a reason I'm not getting back to you, because I do not, in fact, create videos for my company. Like, you haven't seen me on a video for my company.
Yeah,
So
you got the
don't
wrong
write that
person.
you saw my video for my day job. It didn't happen. It's
All right,
bad.
I'm going to attempt to speed run some items we don't have time to go into too deep. So number 5 is a new tool. Well, new to the audience, new to me at least, maybe not to the audience. I found out about it from the GitHub Actions incident that happened with the change files, which I
Mm-hmm.
think we talked about that last week. So GitHub actually recommends this in their incident report. It's
Wow.
called Hardened Runner, and it's a CI/CD security agent that works like an EDR for GitHub Actions, and it monitors network egress file integrity and process activity on those runners. And they said it worked for this threat, where it would have blocked any kind of attempt to reach out to. I think it's gist.githubusers.something.com, right? If you create a gist in GitHub, there's a special domain just for that. That makes it really clear that this is not code authorized or approved or written by GitHub, that it's written by just any random user. So it makes it really easy to block that kind of stuff. Number 6, Google prompt engineering. Saw a LinkedIn post on this where somebody was saying it was just really great how to on prompt engineering, like updated with the latest models and stuff like that. So apparently eye-opening for somebody. I've been meaning to check it out. Haven't had time to go through it. But that link will take you to the LinkedIn post, which I think has the PDF embedded in it. Number 7, this is old news, but I found out it got kind of lost in my system that I used to prep for the news. And it was that cybersecurity startups in RSA's Innovation Sandbox, if you want to be a finalist, you have to accept a $5 million investment, which I've heard is also how shows like Dragon's Den and the what's the American version? Shark Tank work
Right.
as well. Is just to be on the show, you have to give up some equity.
Just to be on the show.
So
Oh, not if you win.
just to be on the show, like even if none of the folks accept your pitch, or if you don't accept their pitch, there's still equity exchange just to be on the show.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, and now that list is out, maybe next week, right before RSA, we'll actually go over the Innovation Sandbox finalists and talk a bit about them. I have done
That'd be great.
some analysis of it, so I do have a list. Spoiler: it's almost all AI security.
Oh, wow.
You
Almost
spoiled
all of
it
it's
for no
AI
one.
security. Yeah. And no one was surprised. This is going to be the third year in a row that RSA is like 90% AI. Third year in a row. Yeah. 3 years since 3 RSAs since ChatGPT came out, basically.
Dang.
Anyway, something was talking near me. I don't know what that was.
Didn't like you talking about RSA.
A ghost in the computer?
I triggered some kind of voice assistant somewhere.
The ghost of RSA's past?
Yeah. I upset somebody. Number 8 is a good essay on security brutalism. I only had a chance to skim it so far, but it looks like it's worth a read. I like these kind of thought leadership, like high level type thinking.
Yeah,
so it's kind of like.
Go ahead.
Did you read it?
I tried to while we're here. I'm trying to understand first who this person is, but like what the angle for security brutalism, like what. Curious to hear your thoughts, like, since you had more exposure to this.
Yeah, no, I'm not deep enough into it to really discuss it, but yeah, it looked like so the main principles here: expose the mechanics, make how security works transparent. So that's, I actually have a sticky note here with Kirchhoff's principle on it, because I just over years still fail to remember that term. But Kirchhoff's principle is about cryptography, about the fact that except for the private key, it should be secure even if your adversary knows everything about it. Right. So transparency, this is an old idea that they're borrowing from here, Kirchhoff's principle. And then number 2 is enforce functionality over frictionless experience. Favor transparency and user control over aesthetics. Rough edges are fine if it means security is clear and uncompromised. I just wouldn't want to confuse that with usability, right? Like bad UX. If rough edges means the product is garbage to use, maybe there's some disagreement there over what's aesthetics and what's good UI UX design. But I feel like good design is still important. Simplify to the core, remove anything that isn't essential, auditable, or explainable. And I don't know if this is kind of pitched towards the vendors. Do you have a sense of that? If it's pitched towards vendors,
I've been trying to understand like where. Well, I'm assuming it's geared towards
who's the audience?
practitioners. But yeah, what's the audience? Is it like a large enterprise, mid, and definitely not a startup? Like, government, not government.
The problem with that is it's really tough to simplify. You have to say no a lot, and startups don't like to do that.
Yeah.
But you kind of have to. Otherwise, you end up building this bloated project that only works for 3 Fortune 100s, right? So,
I mean,
not bad advice, but
Yeah, I mean, you walk into the room and if you say brutalism, if you send this link to your engineering team, I wonder how well it would be received. So,
Yeah.
not to downplay, like I think I like the website, and there's some links also to the laws of security, which was fascinating.
The
So
website's very brutalist also.
yeah,
There's now a securitybrutalism.com website, and yeah. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm feeling it. Interesting. Yeah, I'll have to look over this some more. Few other things before we wrap here. Number 9, right after security brutalism. This is a report from KPMG on the top geopolitical risks in 2025. And I feel this is important because I often talk about how cybersecurity is not any business's top priority. And I find it kind of shocking that I even have to say that, but a lot of people don't understand that. And I think this is an example of a report that can kind of give you that perspective. Okay, what is important then? Cybersecurity is still in this report, but I think it helps you understand what are the other things that the business is also worrying about when you're trying to get more security budget, trying to figure out why people aren't fixing security things. There are other things that are really important. And then
good for a DR plan, basically.
AI
Like DR
hallucinated
plan.
code dependencies become a new supply chain risk. So this is where your vibe, your code vibe, your AI vibing stuff, like it just hallucinates an import library, and people see that hallucinated library that doesn't exist that your code is importing, and they create it. So it's kind of like typo squatting. It's very similar to typo squatting. Basically trying to get you to load a malicious library, and through
Wow.
through hallucination there's now an opportunity to do that. They would have to see your code, I think, to understand what's being hallucinated, but maybe the hallucination is common, like everybody gets the same hallucinated library. Like if you assume they're the same library is being hallucinated for a lot of people, then you can make some guesses, the same way people do with typo squatting in npm and pypy and VS Code plugins and places like that.
Slop squatting. It's called.
Slop squatting. What a
Wow.
great term, right? Slop instead of typo squatting, slop squatting.
Slop squatting. Yeah, I almost like froze saying it. It's very, yeah, it's so
It's
easy to
tricky to
trick in
say.
AI. I mean, listen, accuracy in AI is the number one complaint that people are like, or thing that they're worrying about. If you're using an AI tool, you want to make sure like what it's telling you is accurate. So it's like, I mean, like, it's like tricking a 3-year-old, 5-year-old child.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just not designed to be accurate, right? Like this is, it's just abusing how it's designed.
Hmm.
The next one is a story I recommend checking out and reading through. This guy details a phishing attack. Basically, does a postmortem on a really good phishing attack that he received. That's based on Google infrastructure and things like that. Basically, by abusing some Google infrastructure, you can make some really convincing emails go to people by creating Google apps and OAuth apps and things like that. You can actually make like the text of the scam is the name of the key, and by creating the key, it sends this email, and it's very clever. I recommend reading through it. Number 13. We don't have to talk about that. It's just some weird thing that Microsoft did. They create an IIS root web folder, inetpub. Anybody who's ever used IIS on Windows will know C:\inetpub,
Yeah.
and it put it there on purpose. You should not delete it. It apparently improves protection for some reason. They explain what the reason is. It is, that's why I labeled it weird. But yeah, you should not delete that folder if Windows creates it for you.
Oh my God.
I've not.
Wow. That is true.
Do
It
you
is
have it?
there. Yeah. I'm launching a sandbox and I see it there. Ooh, did we lose somebody?
I think we lost. Oh yeah, she needed to drop. Bye, Katie.
Okay.
I've got it too. Yeah, there it is.
What?
Interesting. So don't delete it. It's there is a way to get it back if you do delete it, because it's got to have the right permissions to do whatever it's doing. But you basically have to install IIS and then uninstall it. That's the way to get the folder back if you delete it by mistake.
No way.
Windows is weird. All right, and the squirrel story is a missing toddler who walked 7 miles through Arizona wilderness, and then a dog found him and led him to safety. A 2-year-old.
I know. I read that. It
So
was really heartwarming.
I wanted to end on something positive. I think it's really saying something when I'm pulling something from AOL.com into the news segment.
Wait, it's AOL?
The link is, yeah.
That's fascinating. It speaks to like the resiliency of the human, you know? This kid, he 7 miles away, somebody asked him, "Did you walk the whole time?" He's like, "No, I laid down. I took a nap at night."
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. They were walking, and then the dog found them in the last mile or two. So
Yeah. And the dog just led him back to the ranch.
yeah, it's
Which
a
is great.
Pyrenees. Pyrenees. Those are really, those dogs are like shepherd dogs. They
Yeah, they're bred for that kind of thing.
yeah, fascinating.
Yeah, that's the land management expert there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Keeps coyotes away, saves children.
Who would have known?
Love it. All right. I think yeah, thanks so much, Eamon, for joining me today. We lost Jackie, we lost Katie. you're the final co-host.
Last man
that
standing.
Stuck it out with me.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. It was really fun. I had to catch today's news. It was like, no way could I miss this week's news. So
Yeah. CVE was a big one.
yeah.
Big thanks to everyone watching or listening to this week's episode of Enterprise Security Weekly, especially if you made it this far. I've gone long on every segment today. I've been very bad. Tyson hates me. And next week, we'll be talking to Jeff Shiner from 1Password about extended access management, and David Haber from Lakera. He's the co-founder of Lakera, who does AI security. And we're going to be talking about AI security. That's the Gandalf company, the company that makes Gandalf.
Yeah, I played it. I played Gandalf. Had a great time.
It's great.
Yeah.
All right. See you next week. Bye-bye.